My husband lost his memory. He threw 30 million at me, demanding a divorce. I tearfully signed the papers. The moment we got the certificate, I immediately kicked him and his true love out of the villa stark naked. He looked utterly shocked. Wait, you never mentioned you were the sugar mommy here. He. Slept with him for 3 years without spending a dime. What a steal. When I got the news about Brian's car accident, my mind went blank. I ran 2 red lights rushing to the hospital. Outside the ward door, I heard a woman's heart-wrenching sobs. My blood turned to ice. Was my husband dead? Tears welled up as I weakly pushed open the door. Honey, you died so tragically. My dramatic wailing abruptly silenced the crying woman. She lifted her face, streaked mascara ruining her perfect makeup. On the hospital bed, Brian stared at me wide-eyed. Forehead wrapped in bandages. Complexion pale but very much alive. You're not dead? I blurted out. His eyes bulged comically. Oh. He could still glare. Good sign. I quietly sighed in relief. Then Brian's irritated voice cut through the air. Who the hell are you? Lady? Lady? For 3 years he'd only ever called me baby or wifey. Occasionally big sister during intimate moments. My voice shook. What did you call me? The woman oozed fake sweetness, clinging tighter to Brian. You must be confused. Ma'am. This is my boyfriend's room. Brian actually pulled her closer without hesitation. Rage shot from my toes to my scalp. Cheating right in front of me? Should have let the damn car finish him off. Through gritted teeth, I growled, let go of her by the count of 3. 1. Brian tightened his grip. 2. The woman planted a kiss on Brian's cheek. 3. They started making out shamelessly in front of everyone. Slap. 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 The sound of blows echoed through the hospital room. I kept slapping Brian's face from both sides. Taking advantage of his stunned reaction, I grabbed the woman's long hair and yanked her backward. Ah. Bree. Help me! She shrieked, flailing her arms wildly. Brian suddenly exploded with rage, shoving me violently with a ferocity I'd never seen before. He sent me crashing into the metal frame of the hospital bed. Crash! White-hot pain shot through my lower back as my vision blurred. Brian didn't even glance my way, instead cradling Chloe's face tenderly, his thumb wiping away her tears. Don't be scared, Chloe. I'm here. So this was Chloe, Brian's first love. Chloe lifted her tear-streaked face, trembling fingers brushing Brian's swollen cheek. Bree, I'm okay. What about you? Does it hurt? They clung to each other like star-crossed lovers. I almost felt bad interrupting even though I'm Brian's legally wedded wife. The doctor said Brian's head trauma caused retrograde amnesia, regressing his memories to 4 years ago. Back when we were strangers. When he and his college sweetheart were still inseparable. As for how long this amnesia might last, could be weeks. Could be years. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the hospital room door again. Brian instantly stiffened, shielding Chloe behind him like a human barricade. What do you want now? I clenched my fists, mentally repeating, he's injured. It's not personal. But damn if it didn't sting. Before I could stop myself, I hurled my phone at his face. Take a good look. See who I am. What the F? He started to bat it away, but froze when our marriage license photo flashed across the screen. Brian stared at the glowing device like it held nuclear codes, his expression shifting from hostility to utter bewilderment. This, impossible, he frantically scrolled through his phone. Every photo showing us together. Countless confession videos he'd sent me flashed by. After 15 minutes of searching, Brian finally faced reality. He looked up at me with conflicted eyes. Why don't I remember any of this? Chloe peered over his shoulder, scanning me with contempt. So what if you're married? Everyone knows you probably trapped him. Brian's eyes lit up. Exactly. I'd never willingly marry you. I want a divorce. I arched an eyebrow at the wedding band still gleaming on his finger. You sure about that? He seized Chloe's hand, interlocking their fingers with dramatic resolve. I've only ever loved Chloe. You must have forced me into this. Tears welled in Chloe's eyes. Bree, you're my soulmate. Their gazes locked in sickeningly sweet devotion. I couldn't help snorting with laughter. Name your price. Brian snapped. Let's end this farce. Sighing, I shrugged. Fine. It's not like you've been performing well lately. 3 years of him managing my company by day and failing to satisfy me by night had taken its toll. Let's say 100 million. Before Brian could react, Chloe exploded. Are you insane? She practically vibrated with rage. Covetous eyes fixed on my limited edition Birkin. Gold-digging leech. That bag's clearly bought with Bree's money. His money? I choked back laughter. Sweetheart. Who do you think signs his paychecks? Leaning forward, I savored her dawning horror. But do enlighten me what settlement would seem reasonable to you? Her eyes darted mischievously as she suddenly raised her voice. 3 million is the absolute maximum. I arched an eyebrow. Bargaining in reverse. That's a new one. Deal. My immediate agreement made Chloe falter. The blonde blinked rapidly before adding. Cash only. Don't even think about touching Brian's property or shares. His property? I mentally reviewed the suburban 30-square-meter apartment smaller than my walk-in closet. Not interested. I waved dismissively. Chloe narrowed her eyes, whispering urgently into Brian's ear. My sharp hearing caught fragments. Company president, Beverly Hills mansion, billion-dollar valuation. Brian's hazel eyes brightened with each word until they hardened into contempt. 3 million? He sneered, bandages wrinkling around his temple. You're charging a fortune. Take the money and disappear forever. I blinked in realization. Wait, were they paying me? Before I could question this windfall, Chloe demanded immediate paperwork. Within 30 minutes, Michael rushed into the hospital room, leather briefcase clutched tight. His gaze locked onto me, lips parting. Michael! Chloe's acrylic nail stabbed the air. Draft the divorce settlement now. State that Brian keeps all assets except Laura's pitiful 3 million. The attorney's fingers hovered over his laptop. Compensation to MS. Clark. Just write it. Brian snapped, tearing at his medical gauze. I watched Michael's jaw tighten as keyboard clicks filled the sterile room. Chloe practically crawled across the glowing screen, smudging it with frantic fingerprints. Specify every stock option. Every property deed. That Malibu beach house stays with Brian. When the printer finally hummed, 3 copies materialized. Michael's pen hesitated above the signature line. Eyes seeking mine. I gave the slightest nod. Across the bed, Brian scrawled his name with such force the paper nearly tore. The moment the documents were in his hands, Brian eagerly signed his name. I took my time accepting the pen, carefully writing out my signature stroke by stroke. Before the ink could dry, Chloe snatched the agreement, clutching it to her chest. Let's head to City Hall right now to finalize everything, she declared. So urgent? I glanced at the bandages still wrapped around Brian's head. In his condition, is this wise? I'm fine. Perfectly fine. Brian sprang from the hospital bed. They'll discharge me immediately. A month later, I held $30 million and divorce papers. Chloe beamed with triumph, leaning close to whisper, "Thanks for taking care of Bree these past years." Her eyes glittered as she added, "Everything's back where it belongs now." She turned to re-enter the marriage bureau arm in arm with Brian. I chuckled, tossing the divorce decree into my bag. Rounding the corner, a black Maybach idled curbside. Michael stood waiting, opening the rear door with practiced deference. All documents are prepared. MS. Laura. As he handed me the laptop, a slideshow automatically began. Photo after photo flashed across the screen, intimate moments in corporate offices, car back seats, even my former marital bed. Transaction records revealed their affair had started 6 months earlier at a class reunion. No wonder Brian's performance had declined recently. Bile rose in my throat. At least my medical reports came back clean. Funding his reunion romance with my money. I muttered. How resourceful. Michael adjusted his glasses. Pulling up another file. There's more. 3 consecutive quarters show major fund discrepancies. All tied to projects Mr. Brian authorized. Through the tinted window, I watched Brian slide a wedding band onto Chloe's finger at the bureau entrance. Leaning back against the supple leather, I smiled coldly. Let's go collect what's owed. This marriage had been an accident from the start. I still remembered Father slamming his fist on the dining table that night, roaring about cutting off my trust fund unless I found a husband. In our circle, few men are clean. The thought of maintaining a loving facade in public while dealing with mistresses behind closed scenes makes my head throb. Screw it. Carpe diem. Let's party first. At Nightfall Bar, I sipped my drink absently until spotting a figure in the corner booth. Brian wore a faded button-down with the collar undone, revealing pale skin glowing against the neon haze. His Adam's apple bobbed hypnotically as he gulped whiskey, more alluring than any male model on stage. Others noticed too. Smoky-eyed girls slithered toward him. Panicking, I shoved through them, claiming the seat beside him. He flinched, liquor-glazed eyes lifting to mine. When my fingers brushed his knuckles, his muscles tensed. Single. Handsome? I teased. His lashes lowered, shadowing tormented eyes. Now I am. Another shot disappeared. Freshly dumped puppies are easiest to train. As he drowned himself in bourbon, fragments emerged. His college sweetheart had slept with his professor for a grad school spot. When he finally collapsed against me, I loosened his collar, fingertips skating over defined abs. Who knew this lanky frame hid such treasures? My teeth left blooming proof on his collarbone. At dawn, Brian jolted awake, clutching a pillow over his nakedness. Did we? I didn't. You ruined my $20K rug. I handed him honey lemon water. I'll pay. His blush-stained ears fascinated me. Maybe I'd developed a taste for this particular flavor. We kept meeting. His gaze grew hotter each time. When my father's health failed, Brian knelt before me with a simple silver band. I'll cherish you forever, he vowed, Smith family's future burning in his eyes. He even signed the prenuptial agreement in front of the old man. The old man chuckled his last breath. 3 years of marriage. Brian had always been the perfect husband. Daily morning kisses without fail. Roses on every anniversary without exception. Even during my period, he'd cancel all meetings to brew ginger tea for me in the kitchen. If only I hadn't caught that unfamiliar perfume on his collar 6 months ago. I thought this could last forever. What a pity. Once the white paper gets stained, you replace it. As the car crept into the gated community, dappled sycamore shadows danced across the windows. Returning to this place I once called home after a month apart felt strangely unfamiliar. The night I decided to divorce Brian, I had housekeeper Wong pack my belongings immediately. Couldn't risk triggering him during the mandatory cooling-off period. What if he suddenly regained his memory and changed his mind? I even doubled the staff's pay to keep up the charade around Brian. Never imagined they'd take method acting so seriously. Mr. Smith this and Madam that. Feeding our egos until we both walked around like smug peacocks, strutting like they owned the estate. Thought I was a fool for settling on $30 million. They scrambled to gather the money, terrified I'd back out. Rumor has it Brian liquidated everything, even sold his 300-square-foot suburban studio. Chloe went deep into debt too. The thought made my fingers itch to see their faces. I dialed housekeeper Wang's number. Slapdash slippers clattered through the receiver. Ms. Clark. Housekeeper Wang appeared sweaty-browed. Wooden spoons still tucked in her apron, fresh from the kitchen. Thank God you're back, her eyes glistened with grievance. The moment I stepped inside, cheap tabaccore opulence assaulted my senses. The tasteful beige carpets had become screaming fuchsia. Custom chiffon drapes? Gone. Barbie pink velvet with bedazzled pleats now clattered like casino chips in the breeze. Layers of lace antimacassars made my eye twitch. Ms. Anderson's redesign. Housekeeper Wang whispered. She said mansions should look expensive. I averted my eyes, unable to stomach the view. What about them? They're upstairs. Couldn't wait to. I was about to speak when a loud crash came from behind. I turned to see Aunt Wang brandishing a mop she'd materialized from nowhere. Eyes blazing with intensity. Laura. Should we go now? She white-knuckled the mop handle, looking ready to charge at my signal. The other staff members buzzed with excitement behind her. Aunt Lee from the kitchen waved a flour-dusted rolling pin, while cleaning lady Aunt Shang snapped her giant shears open and shut rhythmically. We're ready too, Laura. They chorused. Wait. Why were they more eager than me? I later learned Chloe had been tormenting them relentlessly. Under my management, they'd enjoyed 9-to-5 schedules with weekends off and frequent paid leave. But Chloe demanded 24/7 servitude, waking staff for midnight bathroom escorts, summoning help to retrieve items at her feet, insisting each soybean be individually inspected for her morning soy milk. Their collective hatred for Chloe now surpassed mine. Midway up the stairs, Chloe's theatrical moans assaulted my ears. Darling! Oh, yes! Harder! Each crescendoing wail dragged out with tremolo vibrato. I grimaced at the overacting. Brian's years of alcohol-fueled business dinners had taken their toll during our last encounter. He needed Viagra just to last through a 3-minute song. Watching the writhing shadows through the doorway, I almost pitied Chloe's strenuous performance. Aha dash! Her final shriek hit a cracked falsetto. Smirking, I slammed my heel against the door. Bang! The entangled figures froze mid-thrust, twin expressions of shock snapping toward me. Chloe's aria died mid-warble, her face contorting in panic. As for Brian, let's just say certain things went soft. Slowly, I raised my phone. The camera shutter's mechanical click-clack echoed cruelly through the sudden silence. Well, hello there. I flashed a perfect 8-tooth smile. Ah. This time my gasp sounded genuinely shocked. Chloe scrambled toward the scattered clothes, ending up clutching only a sheer nightgown. Brian desperately yanked the bedsheet to cover himself. Heh. What a show! Absolutely spectacular. Chloe glared at me. Laura, what are you doing here? You're divorced now. Her chest heaved violently, causing one silky strap of her nightgown to slip down, revealing flushed skin. I own this house. My presence here seems perfectly reasonable. I twirled my phone casually, eyes lingering on the bedside table's small box. So, still needs performance enhancers. Huh? You scheming bitch. The papers are signed. No take-backs now. Chloe hurled a pillow at me. I sidestepped smoothly as it thudded against the wall. Missed. I chirped, watching Chloe's face twist with rage. She shook Brian's frozen arm. Honey, say something. Brian finally snapped to attention, his Adam's apple bobbing as disgust replaced shock. Why are you here? We're divorced. Veins bulged on his forehead. Get out before I call security. By all means. Call them. I gestured grandly, my smile widening. Mrs. Wang, where the hell are you? Chloe's shrill command still carried that rich bitch arrogance. The door burst open instantly. Housekeepers Wang, Lee, and Zhang tumbled in, eyes glittering with voyeuristic delight. Why did you bring them all? Chloe shrank backward, clutching the sheet so fiercely that Brian lost his coverage entirely. A collective gasp filled the room as multiple gazes zeroed in on Brian's exposed lower half. Someone whispered, "So tiny." Brian's face cycled through scarlet, ashen, then purple rage. He snatched a corner of fabric to shield his delicate situation, his entire body trembling with humiliation. "Mrs. Wang, hurry! Get this bitch out of here. Now. Right away. Mr. Brian." Mrs. Wang chirped, crow's feet crinkling like chrysanthemum petals around her eyes. Without hesitation, she yanked Chloe off the bed along with the comforter. Chloe shrieked like a scalded cat. "Mrs. Wang, what are you doing? Brian, help me." Brian was having his own meltdown. Even for a grown man, being naked under the scrutinizing gazes of half a dozen middle-aged women was pure humiliation. Especially with Laura nonchalantly snapping photos with her phone. "Mrs. Wang, do you want to get fired? Stop this instant," he roared, desperately trying to cover himself with trembling hands. No one paid him any mind. When Brian lunged for his discarded clothes, Laura's stiletto came down hard on his hand. She twisted her heel with ballerina precision, drawing a pained hiss from him. "Aw. Fuck. That hurts. Let go." She only relented when his fingers began twitching uncontrollably. Face drained of color, Brian cradled his injured hand, shooting daggers at Laura with his eyes. "Mrs. Lee. Mrs. Zhang." At Laura's command, Mrs. Lee efficiently gathered every scrap of clothing from the floor, including socks. These were all designer pieces Laura had bought during their marriage. Meanwhile, Mrs. Zhang stripped the silk pajamas right off Chloe's body, another item from Laura's former wardrobe. You, Brian trembled with impotent rage, fingers shaking as he pointed at Laura. Her gaze swept across the master bedroom they'd once shared. Gaudy sequined wallpaper now covered what used to be tasteful wainscoting. Their wedding portrait still hung above the headboard where Brian and Chloe had. This house was tainted. Laura sighed internally. Another full renovation. "Mrs. Wang." The head housekeeper immediately released Chloe's hair and scurried over, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Yes. Ms. Laura? Throw them out." "With pleasure." Chloe's blood-curdling screams echoed through the marble foyer as the staff dragged the naked couple toward the entrance. "Laura. I'm calling the police. This is trespassing." "Ah, Mrs. Wang. What are you doing?" Two people were dumped on the roadside like trash. Brian struggled to sit up, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "I'll fire you all. How dare you throw your employer out?" I sneered coldly, pulling a stack of documents from my bag. I flung them at his face. "Brian, did your amnesia fry your brain too? This house is mine." His eyes widened as he scanned the papers, disbelief twisting his features. "No, impossible." Then the company, his voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "Naturally that's mine too." I hooked my finger under his chin, forcing him to meet my gaze. "You married into my family, Brian." My eyes deliberately trailed downward before I sighed dramatically. TSK. Men really do have such short prime years. Thank God we're divorced, finally I can upgrade. Watching the color drain from Brian's face, I added sweetly, "Oh, I originally planned to give you a $100 million settlement. Imagine my surprise when your wife refused it and handed me $3 million instead." I waved the check before his eyes. "My thanks." Brian collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Chloe shook his arm frantically. "Honey, she's lying, right? Tell me she's lying." Her voice cracked with unshed tears. Smack! Brian suddenly exploded, backhanding Chloe so hard she sprawled on the pavement, clutching her burning cheek. She stared at him in shocked betrayal. You hit me? I have amnesia. How was I supposed to know?" Brian roared, veins bulging at his temples. You're the one who claimed I was a billionaire. Who said she was dumb enough to settle for $3 million? His voice rose to a hysterical shriek. Chloe's mascara ran in black rivers as she screamed back. You told me you were the CEO. How was I supposed to know you were just some kept man? It's over, all over. Brian clawed at his hair, rocking on his knees. What about me? Chloe shrieked. I sold everything borrowed from loan sharks for that $3 million. You said you loved me. Why does money matter? She launched herself at him like a wildcat, their bodies crashing to the concrete in a tangle of screams and clawing nails. This time it was a real brawl. Mrs. Wong brought me a chair from the house, even thoughtfully adding a velvet cushion. I sat down gracefully, accepting the pastry Mrs. Lee handed me while watching the spectacle unfold. Chloe clutched the duvet to cover herself with one hand while clawing at Brian's face with the other. Crimson scratches already marred Brian's cheeks as he kept yanking at the bedding, veins bulging on his hands. Seems they both still had some shred of dignity left. The silk duvet they were fighting over had been custom-made in Hangzhou. What a dilemma, that thing was expensive. My golden retriever absolutely adored it too. If they tore it, my pup would be heartbroken. I signaled Mrs. Wong to retrieve it. The housekeeper had been itching to intervene. She lunged forward with military precision, snatching the duvet midair in a perfect arc before cradling it triumphantly against her apron. Now both combatants stood completely exposed, scrambling to cover themselves with pathetic squeals. Brian looked up at me with pleading eyes, Adam's apple bobbing as he choked out. Considering our past, could you? TSK. I smiled behind my teacup. The door slammed shut with finality courtesy of Mrs. Wong. Let them dance naked in the streets for all I cared. A week later at corporate headquarters, Brian's shrill voice cut through the lobby. There he stood, tailored Armani suit, Windsor knotted tie, hair slicked back every inch the dashing CEO he'd once been. Are you blind? I'm the goddamn general manager. He roared at the security guard. The guard smirked, tapping the newly installed sign beside him, Brian Smith and Dogs Prohibited, complete with Brian's LinkedIn headshot. My design team had outdone themselves. See this, Mr. Smith? The guard's voice carried across the marble atrium. MS. Laura's orders. You and canines aren't welcome here. Snickers erupted from passing employees. Thanks to you, the guard added. Even my bulldog can't take his dump in the executive bathroom anymore. Know your place, gold digger. You're yesterday's leftovers. You. Brian seethed with rage, hand trembling midair before dropping at the sight of the security guard's bulging biceps. I snorted in amusement. The security guard spotted me approaching and hastily shoved Brian aside, bowing deeply. Good afternoon, MS. Laura. His name tag glinted in the sunlight. I nodded approval. Good work. Collect your bonus from accounting later. Thank you, MS. Laura. The guard grinned from ear to ear, shooting Brian a triumphant smirk. As I turned to leave, Brian scrambled up from the pavement. Laura. He rasped, blocking my path unsteadily. Let's get remarried. My lips parted in disbelief. Was this man hallucinating? Even though I lost my memories. He continued woodenly, like some third-rate Shakespearean actor. We can rebuild our connection. You've won. I'm yours now. His jaw clenched before adding through gritted teeth. I'll treat you properly this time. My laughter echoed across the parking lot. Brian's face darkened to match his cheap tie. Own you? My gaze deliberately lingered on his softening midsection. You think you're worthy? He straightened with comical dignity. Aren't you doing all this to win me back? I know you're obsessed with me, emboldened by my silence. His voice gained confidence. If you want to play those chase me romance games, fine. I'll humor you. I blinked. Was his brain filled with shit instead of blood clots? My security team moved to intervene, but I raised a hand. What about Chloe? My smile turned predatory. Brian mistook this for jealousy. I knew you still cared. He crowed. Don't worry. That gold digger makes me sick now. I'd never cheat on you. Disgust twisted his features. Now I realize she's been sleeping around with so many guys, just a common slut. So Laura. Can I come in now? He adjusted his tie with smug confidence. I pointed wordlessly behind him. You'll need to ask her. Brian turned pale as death when he followed my gaze. Why you? How did you? Chloe stood nearby in wrinkled clothes, purplish bruises blooming across her collarbone. You bastard. Her shredded voice cracked. You drugged me. Made me. Sobs choked her accusation as she lunged at Brian. From her fragmented rage, I pieced together Brian's scheme. He'd sold Chloe to finance his designer wardrobe. Disgusting. 2 weeks later, Michael compiled irrefutable evidence of Brian's embezzlement. The company purge eliminated every Brian loyalist. Barring miracles, prison stripes would replace Brian's tailored suits. I never expected to see him again. Today, navigating the parking garage without my driver, I spotted familiar movement. Brian emerged from shadows in that threadbare white shirt, translucent fabric clinging to his gaunt frame like our college days. But his sunken eyes burned with unnatural intensity as he advanced. Thud. He collapsed at my feet. Baby. I was wrong. I recoiled. Something felt off. Brian's face crumpled. Darling. I remember everything now. I'm scum for forgetting you. Tears splattered concrete as he began violently slapping himself. The sharp cracks echoed through the garage, his cheeks inflating like rotten fruit. Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth, blooming crimson stains across his white dress shirt like macabre roses. Yet his eyes burned with escalating frenzy. Cold sweat trickled down my spine as my hand inched toward my purse. My fingertips had barely grazed the phone's edge when Brian snapped his head up, that unnerving smile stretching his bloodied lips. Before I could blink, he lunged across the room. My phone arced through the air like a silver comet before smashing against the floorboards, screen fracturing into spider webs. I whirled to flee, but his vice-like grip trapped my wrist, slamming me against the wall. His feverish gaze raked over me as calloused fingers traced my jawline, nails crusted with dried blood. Ice flooded my veins when I realized the rust-colored flakes beneath his fingernails weren't paint. Darling. He murmured into my neck, warm breath ghosting across my collarbone. Let's try again. My trembling answer caught in my throat. Why yes. His sudden laugh chilled me more than the knife-sharp pain where my spine met concrete. You're shaking, Brian observed sweetly, lips brushing my forehead in mock tenderness. The contrast between his gentle kiss and arctic tone made bile rise in my throat. When his hand closed around my windpipe, madness swirled in his dilated pupils. You did this. Spittle flew as his grip tightened. Your fault I'm like this. Black spots danced across my vision as oxygen deprivation twisted his snarls into underwater echoes. House full of bodyguards, knew I'd come, bitch. I forced myself limp, conserving energy while my numb fingers sought the stun gun's textured grip. The moment his rant hit crescendo, I jammed the device against his ribs. Blue lightning crackled through his body. He collapsed, twitching to the floor. My frantic escape attempt faltered when my ankle caught under his convulsing leg. The man stumbled forward. The 8-centimeter stiletto heel struck him square in the groin. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the parking garage as Brian collapsed unconscious. After the divorce, I'd been worried Brian might become desperate. That's why I'd specially commissioned the stun gun with enough voltage to take down a bull. Now I thanked my foresight. The motion sensor lights flickered on. Security guards' footsteps approached. Only then did I realize my entire back was drenched in cold sweat. When police arrived, I learned the horrifying truth: Brian had killed someone. 3 days earlier, he'd gotten into an argument with Chloe and accidentally strangled her. Investigators found her body dismembered into neat sections arranged with supermarket meatpacker precision inside his freezer. At the station, Brian kept demanding to see me through interrogation room walls. Officers said he kept muttering "Laura will save me" like some broken mantra. I didn't go. Just had Michael deliver psychiatric evaluation documents. On execution day, I found myself at Nightfall Bar, staring at the booth where we'd first met. For one disorienting moment, I saw him again, that boy in crisp white Oxford with eyes like sunlit shallows, raising his glass to me. But when I blinked, the leather seat held only shadows. Some people, once consumed by greed, can never reclaim what they were.